everybody. Welcome to the world of... I'm Chief Meteorologist Jennifer Valdez, and we are talking about something that everybody loves, or at least I know kids love, and that is snow in Georgia. We're going to talk about why it's so hard to see snow in Georgia, but we're also going to talk about how often we see snow, how much snow do we normally see, what did we see this year? So we've got fun stuff to talk about. I don't have anything fun to do today, but tomorrow we're going to try to do a fun activity using Oreo cookies. So I'm hoping you have some Oreo cookies laying around, if so save them for tomorrow, because we're going to do a cool experiment as we learn about the moon. For today, we are talking about snow in Georgia. And before I get to my graphics, I want to talk a little bit about snow in Georgia because we are in the South. We are right next to Florida, who doesn't really see any snow, and we are in North Georgia here, and we do see some snow. We just don't get a lot. On average, Georgia gets 2 snow days a year. That's on average. And a lot of times kids ask me, well, what's average mean? Average is the average. It means that if you take all the years and put them together and you calculate them all, you see how many snow days there are. On average, there's 2. That means some days there's 5, some years, I should say. Some years there's 5, some years there's 0, some years there's 3. So you get all those numbers together, you do the math, and you figure out how many we normally have. So normally, we get about 2 snow days a year. But again, we could have 5, we could have 0. It just depends on the year. This year, we had snow in February, but not all of you saw it. It was actually February 8th, and some places, like in Cherokee County, in Hall County, near Lake Lanier, we had as much as 6 inches of snow. But where I live, I'm inside the perimeter, inside 285. I had 0 snow, 0, nothing. So it was either feast or famine. And we see that a lot in North Georgia because we need 2 things to come together to see snow here in North Georgia. We need a system moving in, bringing moisture, which we get a lot of, but we also need cold air, and we need it at the exact same time. You can't have the moisture first, then the cold air, which is what we get a lot. Actually, most times that's what happens. We get a cold front moving through, you get the rain, then the cold air moves in behind the front. By the time the temperatures drop below freezing, the moisture's gone, and you can't have snow without moisture. So you need both in place at the same time. And when we had that snowfall in February, the reason why Cherokee County, the reason why parts of Hall County, even northern Fulton County, places like Alpharetta, Roswell had snow, was because they had both at the same time. They had the moisture and the cooler temperatures, whereas in the city, or at least where I live, we didn't get the cold air as the moisture was moving in. So it lagged behind pretty late. And we had a big difference in temperature. Some areas were in the upper 20s, some were in the 30s, some were in the mid 30s. So again, we were very close. Didn't get it where I live, but we did have plenty of snow. Maybe you got some snow and have some amazing pictures. If so, I would love to see them. Show me your pictures. Send them on the bottom here. I'm going to look over them later because I always love snow pictures, and I just didn't get any this year. Now, we talked about on average, we get 2 snow days in Georgia. Do you know when we normally get snow in Georgia? Is it in the winter? Is it over Christmas? It's actually normally in January and February. So although we could see snow in December, we've seen it before. Normally it's January and February. And again, that's the coldest months of the year. So again, you need the cold air and the moisture. And it's just more likely in those months because that's when we have the cold air. So I'm going to flip this camera around. We're going to start of weather lesson, and as always, if you have any questions, I am here to answer any questions. Sorry, party foul as my computer timed out. We're gonna get it. There we go. And I dropped my phone. So the joys of working from home. I'm actually gonna lower this here. My tripod does not want to stand up. Okay, world of weather. There we go. So we are talking about snow in Georgia, and I want to start with this picture because snow is gorgeous, and if you look at it up close, do you see that? That's what a snowflake looks up close. And did you know that no 2 snowflakes look alike? So next time it snows, I know it doesn't happen very often, but you should get a magnifying glass, let it land, and the best thing is not to catch it in your hand because it will melt because your hand is warmer. But if you let it go on a cardboard box or even a spoon or a piece of paper, let the snowflake land and look at it up close and get a magnifying glass, and you'll see that snowflakes are really gorgeous and no two look alike. And some of them have a bunch of edges or a few edges. Some of them are pointy, some of them are more rounded, and in the middle they look different. So snowflakes are very beautiful. And we talked about on Friday what snow is. It's a water droplet that falls from the atmosphere, and it's cold the entire way down, and it stays as snow. So you need it to be 32 degrees the entire way, all the way from the clouds all the way to the surface in order to get snow. Now this shows you the average snowfall days in Georgia. And as you can see, on average, and we talked about what average meant, we don't get snow in October, November, December. It's just not cold enough, and it just doesn't happen as often. It's possible, but it's not as often. We normally get one snow day in January. We normally get one snow day in February. So on average, we have 2 snow days a year, one in January, one in February. On average, we get about 2 inches, just under 2 inches, about 1.9 inches of snow a year. So not very much. And again, that's an average. Some years we'll get 5, some years we'll get 0. So that's just the average. We normally get it on 2 different days. And this year was on February 8th. We talked about that. Cherokee County, Hall County, northern Fulton County, the North Georgia mountains, we had plenty of snow. But as we got into the city, we didn't get nearly as much. And again, that's because the temperatures weren't cold enough inside the city. We did have one year in 1968 where we had 7 snow days. 7 snow days. So it's possible, we just don't get it very often. And last year we didn't get any snow days. My kids keep reminding me about that. Now, snow isn't the only kind of winter weather we see here in Georgia. We also see freezing rain and ice, which is actually the most dangerous type of winter weather. Snow can't be in all isn't very dangerous, although it can be, like it was in Snowmageddon, which we're going to talk about here coming up. But it's the freezing rain and ice that's the most dangerous. Now, what is freezing rain and ice? We talked about this on Friday, and if you want a refresher, please go back and watch our World of Weather from Friday because we go over the different precipitation types. But it's raining higher up in the atmosphere, then, and it's above freezing, so above 32 degrees. We talked about that magical number on Friday. Then once it gets to the surface, it's freezing, so it creates ice. It almost freezes on contact. And the first places that you see freezing is on road signs, on tree branches, and on bridges and overpasses. That's because they're up in the air and they're surrounded by the cold air. So it creates ice, and ice can be very, very slippery. Now, Snowmageddon. This is what it looked like on the downtown connector. This is on January 28th, 2014. So it seems like yesterday. I was here in Atlanta working, and it's just crazy how everything just magnified by the hour, really by the minute. And a lot of people talk about Snowmageddon and they forget. And I'm going to flip about Snowmageddon. A lot of people talk about Snowmageddon, but they forget that Snowmageddon, we didn't have an incredible amount of snowfall. We only had 2 inches of snow during Snowmageddon. But then everyone asks, why did it create such a disaster? People were stranded on the roadways. They couldn't get home. Kids were trapped at school. And it's because the city of Atlanta had everyone leave their places of employment, schools dismissed. Everyone drove home at the exact same time. So this snow, which was only 2 inches, was on the roads, but then you have all these cars driving on these 2 inches of snow, melting it and creating ice. So what started off as snow turned into ice as all of the snow started to melt and all the cars were driving on it. And you can't drive on ice. Ice is slippery. The cars just turn the wheels. So everyone was stranded. So it just took a couple of drivers to be stranded. Then the people behind them were stranded. Then the people behind them were stranded. And nobody could get anywhere. So Snowmageddon was a big learning experience for the city of Atlanta. We weren't really prepared on how to handle it. I don't think we handled it correctly. But now we learned, and the city has an entire task force so that something like this doesn't happen again. And now people get dismissed hourly by different times. We just don't want everyone on the roads at the exact same time. So Snowmageddon was in January. It was 2 inches of snow. We're going to flip this. Whoop. It was 2 inches of snow that caused Snowmageddon. It wasn't a huge snowstorm. 2 inches of snow in any other city would have been just fine, but because everyone got on the roads at the exact same time, that's what caused the problem. So today's trivia, on average, how many snow days does Atlanta get per year? Is it 0? Is it 1? Is it 2? Is it 3? Do you remember? The answer is 2. On average, we get 2 snow days a year. And this year, we had 1 snow day so far this year, at least across the northern suburbs, where we have had, depending on where you live, some areas got as much as 6 inches of snow, some areas got nothing. I didn't get anything, but I know a lot of the northern suburbs got some snow. So now the big question, are we going to get any snow this year? I'm sure that's a question. No, we are done. No more snow for the rest of the year. We're now in April. It is spring, so we're not going to get any snow, but we could always get it in December. So it doesn't mean we're done for 2020. Could see some in December, although not as likely, because as we talked about, we're more likely to get snow in January and February. So that's our little lesson for today. I wanted to talk about snow in Georgia, why it's so hard to forecast snow in Georgia, and how much we normally get. Tomorrow, we're talking about the super moon. Tomorrow is the closest the moon will be to the earth for the entire year. So tomorrow you're going to have some homework. I'm going to have you look at the moon tomorrow, even though we have mostly cloudy skies. I'm hoping we can still get some peaks of the moon. The sky cover is not in our favor for tomorrow, but it is going to be the biggest, brightest moon we'll see all year. We're going to talk about why that is. We're going to talk about the moon, how it is in relation to the earth, why it happens, and we're going to have a little activity for you. So I'd love to answer any questions. I hope everyone had a great weekend. Does anybody have any questions? I know it's spring break. Hopefully you're outside enjoying this weather. Tim, do we have any questions? Oh, what is the worst? Let me see if I wrote this down. It was before I was born. It was the big snowstorm. Hold on. Let me look up. I had it here. Yeah, I think it was in the 40s. Storm. Yeah, it was January 23rd, 1940. They call it the worst, even though it was actually the second worst. In 1940, we had 7.9 inches of snow. So 7.9 inches of snow, that's a lot. But actually, there was one point where we had 8.3 inches of snow. So, the surprise snowstorm, March 24th, 1983. So we also had in 1983 where we had a huge snowstorm as well. So we get them every once in a while where we get 7-8 inches, but certainly it doesn't happen very often. It doesn't happen very much, which is good because Atlanta's not prepared to deal with snowfall like that. But again, we had as much as 6 inches in the northern suburbs this year. So certainly it can happen. No other? Yeah. Yep, yeah, definitely. So we've had some major snowfalls. I think Snowmageddon is the one most people talk about because we remember it. It happened so recently. It was in 2014. And again, it wasn't the amount of snow that really crippled the city. It was how the city handled the snow because it was 2 inches. And you look at places around the US and they get 2 inches all the time and nothing happens. So I think we're better prepared to deal with something like that. But yeah, the biggest one we remember was Snowmageddon in 2014, which was only 2 inches of snow, which is, looking back, just crazy to think that that much happened with only 2 inches of snow. So that's all we have for today. I'm so glad you joined me. A lot of you are on spring break. So thank you for taking time out of your day to learn a little bit about snow in Georgia while on spring break. Go outside, enjoy this day. It is absolutely gorgeous outside. Tomorrow we're going to talk about the moon. I hope everyone has a great day and a great week, and we'll see you tomorrow at 1:15. Bye everyone. Have a great Monday.